How do French people stay so thin while pretty much eating whatever they want? I'm French, I live in Paris, and on my last video on the topic, people tried to guess the secrets behind the French diet and often got it completely wrong. So today I want to break down the biggest myths before showing you how I actually eat as a French person. Alright, one of the biggest stereotypes on why French people are so thin is this idea that red wine is somehow the secret. And this idea really blew up a long time ago thanks to this 60 Minutes episode that aired before I was born and that talks about what is called the French paradox. And this is this idea that we supposedly eat unhealthy things like wine, cheese, and fattening foods, and yet stay slim and healthy. And what sounds crazy to me is that this TV show had massive consequences and apparently even contributed to a 40% increase in red wine sales in the US. So first of all, the idea that red wine is good for your health has been debunked in 2006, but I still receive so many comments about it, so I do feel the need to address it. First of all, I have never ever heard a French person say that they should drink more wine to stay thin. This is not a thing here. Red wine is part of our culture, but definitely not a health food, and absolutely not the secret to weight loss. And in France, wine is all about the experience. You usually drink it with food, often share a glass at dinner or with friends. Personally, have never drank wine alone. It's something I always share with other people. And we're gonna talk about the French mindset around eating a bit later, because it's way closer to a real French diet secret than looking for the one thing that will solve it all. And that brings me to another big myth that has serious consequences, which is smoking. Everywhere online, people love to say that French people stay thin just because they smoke, but that's absolutely not true. I personally don't smoke and I don't know a lot of people who do, and I've never seen a French person say that they're gonna skip a meal and just have a cigarette instead. That's just an overused trope you see in the movies and not real life. And for the people who do smoke, smoking is often linked to coffee breaks, so smokers would often do it with friends, colleagues, maybe while having a drink, while drinking coffee after a meal, or while taking a break at work. There's even a French expression for the coffee and cigarette break, which is called café clope, and this mostly happens outside, so either at a cafe or in the street, because in France it is forbidden to smoke indoors. So that's why you see so many people smoking in the street in France. As a non-smoker, I would just, for example, take a coffee break inside and not have to go outside. Also, the smoking rates are slowly declining in France, and there's more and more places where you can smoke in, which as a non-smoker, I'm really happy about. Like, for example, now there's a lot of parks where you can smoke in Paris, and my local park, which is so peaceful and so nice, is one of them, which is absolutely amazing. Also, obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not here to add to the debate on whether smokers are thinner than non-smokers or not. I'm just gonna say that it's a controversial topic and that smoking is the main cause of preventable disease in many countries, including the US and France. Also, 6 out of 10 people who smoke in France say they want to quit. But anyways, I found French data on weight gain and smoking, and apparently 1 in 3 smokers doesn't gain weight after quitting. And for those who do gain weight, the average weight gain is between 2 and 4 kilos, which is 4 to 9 pounds. I don't think it's big enough to actually make a difference. Then I receive a lot of comments from people who think French people just have good genes. Obviously, that's also a myth. Obesity rates are increasing in France, just like pretty much anywhere in the world. However, we're still towards the bottom of the list in terms of ranking, and we have very low rates compared to other countries. Also, I just want to say that I have personal experience with that. I feel I can't just eat anything I want anywhere. Like, for example, when I moved to the US, I did gain a little bit of weight because the eating habits were very different from what I'm used to, and also I wanted to try all the delicious comfort food. And it's not just me, it seems to be quite a common experience. Also, some people seem to think that French people stay thin because we're constantly restricting ourselves, but that's really not the case. Of course, there are eating disorders in France just like anywhere else in the world, but I feel that as a culture, we are not as much into extreme dieting than in other places. Instead, I feel we really have a culture of actually enjoying food, which we'll get into in the next section. Also, don't even look towards weight loss drugs like Ozempic or Wegovy. It's not as much of a thing here. Less than 1% of users take it for weight loss, and it's very strictly controlled and mostly prescribed to people who have diabetes. Alright, so by now you probably get it. What I'm trying to tell you here is that there are no quick fixes. Like, there is no single thing that will make you effortlessly thin. And in reality, it's way more about how we actually eat. And that's exactly what I want to show you in this next section, obviously through my own experience while getting into what I think are the real French diet secrets. And I'm really excited to get into it because this is one of the biggest questions I actually receive on all my other videos on the topic. So here's the truth. One thing you need to know about France is that food is really about enjoyment. And I even found a study that says that 92% of French people find food enjoyable instead of just considering it as fuel. And my personal opinion is that when you really take time to appreciate your food, you develop a more balanced and mindful way of eating and also a better relationship with food. Also in France, there is a deep appreciation for good products and how they're made. Like, it's not just about what we eat, but also where it comes from. And that's where this French concept of terroir comes in, which means that certain foods come from specific regions and are made using traditional methods. And one way you can really see that is by taking a trip to the Champagne region. And that's exactly what we did with my friend Stella. We started our little Champagne expedition with visiting Pommery, which is a champagne house that was created in the 19th century and has these incredibly beautiful underground cellars. Then we went to check out a smaller independent champagne grower in the countryside, and there we learned how champagne is made. We shared a delicious meal with our group, and of course we got to try their champagne. This next one we visited is family owned, and it was so special since the grandfather of the owners dug the cellars by himself in the 50s, and to be honest, I could have never found all of these cool things on my own, and this is why I booked the experience on Klook. Klook is a long-term partner of the channel, and I really love working with them since they have the best experience both in France and around the world. They also have amazing deals on hotels and activities, so if you're traveling, you should absolutely try them. So go ahead and click the link in the description below and use my code LucilleYTKlook for a discount. Alright, so this is not just my personal opinion. The French way of eating is literally recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage. So meals in France, they follow a structure. We all sit down, there's many courses, we take our time, and obviously it's all about sharing food with others. Usually these meals are pretty big and the food is heavier than what I would eat at home, but what I eat during the special meals is exactly like in my food videos. So I really go into these meals with the idea of enjoying the food and the company, and not with a goal of being thin or looking a certain way, because this would totally kill my enjoyment of the meal. Also, I don't like to think of some foods as being good and others being bad, so I never restrict myself, and instead I apply common sense, like I eat foods that make me feel good and I just stop eating when I feel full. Obviously, I couldn't eat those special meals every single day, and I would say that there's a big difference between the special French meals and the meals we eat on the daily. I think this is why I get so many questions on the topic, so I'm really excited to finally share this with you. Also, side note, this is obviously my own perspective. There are a lot of people in France, all with different tastes and habits, and I'm not saying that every single person in France eats like me. Alright, so this is what my breakfast usually looks like. I usually wake up between 7 and 8 a.m. and I start my day by drinking a giant latte that I make at home with whole milk. And here, I know a lot of people will say that this is considered a bad food, but remember we talked about not demonizing any food, and I really like the taste of whole milk. The milk you can find in France is really good. This one is a bit special because it's lait frais, so it's fresher than the other milks and you can keep it for too long. Then the other thing I have pretty much every single day is bread, and here I'm lucky, where I live there's 1,000 bakeries around, so it's always fun for me to go out and go pick up bread. The one I picked today is a sourdough rye bread, and when I got it, it was really hot. It was straight from the oven. Then I always put salty butter on top of my bread, and that's it. That's pretty much my breakfast every single day of the week. I'll eat as many slices of bread as it takes to not be hungry anymore, and on the weekends I'm gonna have a larger breakfast and maybe even go out for brunch. So for lunch I usually eat something quick, at least for French standards. I tend to take between 30 minutes to an hour to eat. Often during the week most people will share a meal with their colleagues, but since I'm self-employed I try to go eat lunch with a friend at least a few times a month. And today I met with my friend Camille and we went to a crêperie, which is what you call a crepe restaurant in France. By the way, this one is an absolute gem and is linked on my map with around 200 of my favorite places for food in Paris. So here we had galettes, which are savory crepes that are made with buckwheat flour. Mine had some apples, some raclette cheese, and some lardons, which are little pieces of ham. And all that is served with a side salad. This was absolutely delicious and it kept me full all afternoon. And right now it's 4 p.m. and it's time for my favorite French meal, which is goûter. A goûter is what we call our mid-afternoon snack. It's usually something that's mostly for kids, but as an adult adult, I have to say that I absolutely love goûter. It's the perfect occasion to take a break during the workday, and usually I often grab tea and a fruit, maybe some bread, and maybe once a week I'll pick up a treat like a pastry. So this is what I did today, and I picked up a pain au chocolat aux amandes from one of my favorite bakeries called Léonie, and it's basically a chocolate croissant with almond cream in it. It's so delicious, and it's definitely a treat. So here what I want to share with you is that most of the time I follow the same structure when I eat every single day, but I feel that while it's good to have a structure because I know exactly when I'm gonna eat and what type of food I'm gonna eat, it's also great to not be too rigid and, break the routine from time to time. Also, I really want to stress the fact that all the meals balance each other out over the course of a week. Like, I'm not eating exactly the same way every single day. Okay, alright, so after this big goûter, I'm actually craving veggies for dinner, and usually I go to the restaurant or to dinner parties at friends' places a few times a week, but most of the time I actually just cook at home with my boyfriend Bobby. We usually get our veggies from a co-op that sells products directly from small producers. We just eat whatever veggie is in season and we try to cook it in a way that we like. I feel it makes it so easy to eat veggies, and also I feel cooking doesn't really feel like a chore, it's like more something we do together. So tonight, as you can see, we're doing leeks, and I usually make them in such a simple way. I just remove the parts I don't want to eat, slice them in half, wash them really well, and then roast them in the oven with a bunch of olive oil and seasoning. And with that, I make some homemade puree, which are basically boiled mashed potatoes that are then mixed with olive oil and garlic. And seriously, this is one of my go-to meals. I'm not even a good cook. This is so simple and really delicious. I feel we eat that at least once a week, especially now that leeks are in season. And for dessert, I'm gonna make baked apples, which are exactly that. They're sliced apples, topped with cinnamon, a tiny bit of salty butter, and then you just throw them in the oven. Think of that as like an apple pie without the pie crust. So anyways, as you can probably see, the real French diet secret is pretty straightforward. It's all about eating good food, not too much of it, and in a way that feels good for you. Anyways, this is the final result of my cooking. So now I'm gonna go grab Bobby, we're gonna enjoy dinner, and if you enjoyed this video, you should absolutely check out the ones on screen right now. I'll see you there.